Two Weird World viewers have written of their strange and unforgettable glimpses seemingly into an alternate time zone or even world. Bus stop glitch. This strange and unforgettable experience still stands out in Michael's mind, having occurred on a Saturday in 2016. Seemingly some bizarre insight into an alternative universe, the event is still unexplainable and, he assures us, is 100% true. Michael was living in Blackpool, England in the United Kingdom. On this particular evening at around 11 p.m, he decided to take a short walk down the road to the nearby open all hours petrol station, which takes him only about 5 minutes to get to. Upon crossing the road towards the petrol station, he saw the bus stop and shelter, which had always been there as long as he can remember. Michael says that he typically walks past this bus stop shelter multiple times a week, as he had done for about 5 or 6 years. In fact, every time he goes to the petrol station. He says that the bus stop usually is broken down, is dirty and old looking, and with broken glass or plastic on the side, which would usually display some sort of advertisement. However, during this visit to the petrol station, it was looking brand new. Michael figured that the council had got around to repairing it. It was sparkling clean and all lit up, with white lights illuminating an advertisement, and the plastic or glass had obviously been replaced. The whole structure was looking brand new. As Michael observed the new, improved bus stop, two things stood out in his mind. He realised that the bus stop had actually moved slightly up the road by maybe 15 or 20 feet. Initially, he thought the slight change of location was weird, but seeing how new the bus stop shelter was looking, he just concluded that the council had decided to move it whilst repairing or replacing it. The bus stop markings on the road had been repainted and were also looking new, while the old faded ones were still there but slightly down the road. More importantly, the ad that the bus shelter was showing in its window was promoting a new movie with the title Shawshank Redemption. Michael assumed that this was seemingly a remake of the classic 1995 film. As with the 1990 movie Total Recall, which had been remade in 2012 with modern graphics and CGI effects, Michael figured that, of course, a classic remake of the Shawshank Redemption would make money. Strangely though, he also didn't recognise a single cast member amongst the actors and assumed that the filmmakers had used lesser-known actors rather than the big names. As he walked past and saw the film advertised, he thought, "Oh, interesting, that'll be awesome. I'm definitely going to watch that," as he had really enjoyed the original. Michael walked into the petrol station and bought some snacks and a drink, as he was staying up quite late as usual, describing himself as a bit of a night owl back then. On the way back home, he walked up to the bus stop to get a closer look at the film ad. Unfortunately, he didn't have his phone on him at the time, having left it at home, as he was only going to be out for about 10 or 15 minutes. This meant he couldn't take a photo of the poster. Nevertheless, he said to himself, "That's cool, I'll come back tomorrow and get a photo," as he wanted to show a friend of his who was a big movie buff. Michael says that he can still literally picture the ad and described it in detail. It showed a completely different cast, where they were wearing striped clothing which had black and white horizontal stripes. The prison was a large building made of reddish-brown bricks, and placed in the top left corner there was the sun, with sunlight shining from behind the actors. Also in the publicity shot were two guards in black uniform in the top right, and in front of them was a handful of prison inmates. A black actor, obviously playing the character Red, Morgan Freeman's role, stood in the front and to the left, and a white actor playing the Andy character, Tim Robbins' role, was at the front slightly to the right of Red. From about their thighs down the image faded, and below this was placed the title Shawshank Redemption. Michael says that he didn't pay much attention to dates and other details as he was feeling so excited about the movie and intended going straight onto Google when he got home just minutes later. After having had a closer look, he returned home and immediately Googled the film to get more information. However, frustratingly, he couldn't find anything other than the original movie. So he said to himself, okay, this must be brand new, day one of the advertising. He then spoke with his American movie buff friend in America, and she was also super excited. However, she was also a bit skeptical, and after she herself found nothing on Google, she thought Michael was fooling around, as if teasing her. The next day, Michael went back to the bus stop with his phone in order to take a photo to prove to her that he was telling the truth. He was astonished to find that the bus stop had not only moved back to its original position, but also that the clean, brightly lit up bus stop shelter with the ad had gone. It was back to looking dirty, old and run down, with no lights, no ad, and the glass or plastic back to being broken. Michael felt completely bewildered. Michael definitely stands by the vivid reality of his experience. He says that no, he doesn't do drugs and also drinks very little. His only vice at the time was to smoke cigarettes, and he was otherwise a fit, healthy and sane 28-year-old male. Regardless, ever since, when he tells people his account of this experience, they just assume that he is either lying or deluded, as if to question why anyone would want to do a remake of the film. However, as he points out, there have been remakes of quite a few movies, including the aforementioned Total Recall, Ocean's 11, True Grit, and even Stephen King's own It and Pet Sematary. Michael ends his account by stating that even today there isn't a single piece of evidence online to suggest such a remake. In fact, Stephen King has gone on the record saying that he hopes to never see a remake of The Shawshank Redemption. In the meantime, Michael promises on his heart and soul that his account is 100% absolutely true, leading us to the inescapable conclusion that that day in 2016 he did experience an eerie encounter with an alternate universe. Disappearing truck. Chris, who lives in eastern North Carolina in the USA, has shared the following strange experience which took place in around 2015. A new friend at that time had just acquired through a lease a large building in the industrial zone sector of a nearby city to be used for his woodworking business. The sizable building sat immediately off a main thoroughfare and contained its own private drive. This drive horseshoed around the building, which had only the one entry and exit point onto the premises. The front entrance of the building faced a paved main road, which is where the single vehicle entry and exit point was located to the property. Although the building had been used for a cabinet shop in times past, some finer details of the structure required attention. One afternoon, Chris found himself assisting his friend with replacing a large run of air fittings servicing the building, installing black iron pipe in the ceiling spaces and other modifications. For the sake of airflow and lighting, they had 3 large roll-up bay doors, fully open, with one on each of the east and west side of the building, open in the immediate area they were working in. These 2 openings were directly opposite one another across the shop floor, therefore the outdoors were openly visible and clearly seen through them. They also had a large roll-up bay door fully opened at the rear of the building during this same time. Chris and his friend could therefore clearly see outside, all around and at the rear of the property. Chris was up an 8-foot ladder close to the west side roll-up door and could clearly see outdoors from where he stood, with no equipment in between to mar his view. It was a bright sunny day and his friend was standing on the shop floor nearby. It was at this moment, unbeknownst to his friend, that Chris went into something of what he describes as a trance-like hypnotic state, totally out of the blue, and with a deep sense of this being a déjà vu experience. Just before this experience cleared, an older white pickup truck with 2 white males in it drove past the opening of this side door. Both men were looking into the building and waving very mechanically and quite slowly as they were driving towards the rear of the building. Chris's friend immediately declared, "Who was that?" and he took off walking briskly towards the opposing side door opening, with the intention of intersecting them as they rounded the horseshoe drive around the building. Again, Chris emphasises that the horseshoe drive had only one entry, in which was also the only exit out, at that single point at the front of the building. There is also a ditch around the rear and east side of the building, making it impossible for a vehicle to leave in that direction, and a very large field towards the west. As quickly as his friend took off walking towards that east side opening, Chris climbed down the ladder and walked out the west side opening, both of them walking towards the rear of the building. The vehicle had completely vanished, without a single trace. The two friends were baffled, and Chris sensed his mate tried to write it off as something he didn't have the stomach for, so he didn't talk about it much. That vehicle had completely vanished. There was nowhere for the men to go. They would have had to drive around the building on the horseshoe drive to exit, but they never did, and when Chris and his friend both arrived at the rear of the building, there was no one except for the two of them. Chris describes it as a very bizarre experience, but the portion which made it puzzling to him personally was the eerie slow-motion effect of the men's waves and the manner in which the truck drove past. He felt that it was like someone had slipped into their time zone or space dimension from another dimension, men who seemed even from a different culture,